The month of June has come to an end, but before we head into the month of July, we must go over what happened in June. And of course, the June recap is when we go over the entry draft. So the 2019 entry draft will be the first thing we do after we take a look at the Royals record, which as it stands right now is 44-38, which is good enough for first place in the AL Central, because the rest of the AL Central is absolutely awful. They continue being awful. Minnesota's 5.5 games back, Detroit's 6.5 games back, and Cleveland is 8.5 games back, and none of these teams are any good. This division has the possibility, let's just say that, I don't know, the Royals have an awful second half of the season. It's possible that a team could win this division with a 500 record or a sub-500 record, and that is pretty awful. And now before we go over all the league leaders and the player statistics and possible trade ideas and all that good stuff, because we are about to head into the month of July, and then the July recap will be mainly centered around the trade deadline, let's take a look at the 2019 MLB entry draft. First of all, we had the 22nd overall pick to start off in this year, and what we took with that 22nd overall pick was outfielder DeAndre House. He is a 20-year-old left-handed bat, right-handed throw, 86 potential. I'm not going to show you these guys' overalls. You can just see who they are, because most of these guys, if not all of these guys, are going to be getting prospect profiles. After him, we took another outfielder in Francisco Torres, 19-year-old, 71 potential. Then a starting pitcher, Jake Rayner, 19-year-old, 71 potential. Third baseman, Frank Abreu, 19-year-old, 68 potential. Relief pitcher, Orlando Meadows, 22-year-old, 73 potential. Starting pitcher, Kenny Bryan, 23 years old, 77 potential. And then we took a outfielder, Rob Harms, 22 years old, 72 potential. His attributes are so insanely low, we did not even offer him a contract, so he is not going to be in our farm system next year. He's just a complete bust. He's not going to be in the Royals organization. Now let's move on to some of the league leaders throughout the American League on this Royals team. We've got Travis Jankowski, who, despite being our fourth outfielder, they're not playing every day. He's up there for stolen bases. He's got 19 on the year, which is fourth in the American League. Then on the pitching side of things, you've got Kelvin Herrera, who has 24 saves, which is fifth in the American League. Danny Duffy is splattered all throughout the pitching leaderboards. A 2.43 ERA is fifth. His .98 whip is the best in the American League, as well as his 3.3 WAR, best in the American League. But despite him being such a good pitcher and having those stats, which arguably are more impressive than ERA and definitely more impressive than pitcher wins, the Cy Young Award in this game, and pretty much in real life, because there are still a lot of crusty old men voters who just look at wins and just go, oh, we didn't win 20 games, so we can't win the Cy Young. So he's not even in the running for the Cy Young, but that's what the Cy Young Award basically is. It's the wins award in this game. We've also got Jesse Hahn, who's having quite a good year for us. The sub-3 ERA at 2.86 is 9th, top 10 in the American League. And then Jake Junis only has allowed 19 walks so far through June, and that's second in the American League. And as I mentioned last month in the last monthly recap, Craig Gentry went down with a fractured shin. He was put on the 60-day DL. Khalil Lee was brought up from AAA to take his place as the everyday center fielder, because I didn't want him to be the fourth outfielder. I wanted him to play every day if he was going to be at a level, and Jankowski is the fourth guy right now. But Khalil Lee, not doing the greatest. 213 average, 286 OBP, 326 slugging. That's a 612 OPS in 89 at-bats. It's only 89 at-bats, but it's still not the most encouraging thing in the world. He's only going to be in the big leagues for 3 to 4 more weeks, because that is the length on Gentry's injury. So Gentry will be back at the major league level. He's not out for the rest of the year. Khalil Lee will be sent down to AAA rather than AA, where he was called up from, to see what he can do down there, and hopefully prepare to be in our everyday lineup next year in 2020. I'm not totally sold on him being the opening day center fielder in 2020, but it is a possibility that I could look at. And then since Gentry has gone down, we didn't really have anybody else to put in that leadoff spot, so we've been using Ramon Torres because he has the lowest strikeout rate on the team, and then he also was walking a lot when I put him there, but since I've put him in the leadoff spot, he has performed not so well. His OBP was like 360 something when I put him in the leadoff spot. It might even been higher than I'm not exactly sure. It's dropped down to 339. Definitely not what you want to see. And his OPS is below 700. Also not what you want to see. So just waiting for Gentry to come back so we can have him and Jankowski just swapping it up in the leadoff spot, and Torres can drop back down to that 9-hole where I guess he seems more comfortable. Another injury that happened this month was Mabry's Valoria, the catcher who is probably or definitely going to be our everyday catcher next season in 2020 because Perez is going to be traded in the offseason. But even if I did want to trade Salvador Perez at the deadline, I couldn't because there's nobody to put him there for. Because Sandy Leon, I don't want him playing every day. I'm not going to make a trade for Perez to just have some guy who's going to be there for a stopgap starter while Perez is gone. So Valoria is no longer an option in this season. I didn't really plan on doing that anyways. That wasn't an idea that I had. That's just something I saw somebody comment about, but I just figured I would throw that out there and explain that. So he is going to be traded in the offseason, but he's not going to be traded at the deadline because even if I wanted to, he could not take over. Valoria, that is. And, of course, Perez also not doing well. A 609 OPS, not good at all. He does have 11 home runs. The guy can hit home runs. You can't knock him for that. He's an insanely good defensive catcher, and he's going to hit quite a few home runs. He could end the season with, like, 20, but he just can't do it consistently. It's all good if you can hit home runs, drive in some runs. Obviously, we know nowadays that it's all about OBP. There are guys out there who hit 220 averages, but they still have great OBPs, great slugging. Perez is not that guy. He's hitting home runs, but he has nothing else good about his game other than the fielding. And like I said, the reason why I'm trading him is because Valoria is basically him defensively, but he has a much higher ceiling, or not much higher. He just has a higher ceiling, and he's younger as it stands right now as a catcher, and he's also infinitely cheaper. So that's why we want to trade Valoria. That's not going to happen at the trade deadline, once again, because of the injury. Also, a guy we called up this past month, Tommy Joseph. We DFA'd Joe Mauer in the May recap video. He's no longer in the organization. Tommy Joseph took over as the DH, Hunter Dozier as the first baseman, and Tommy Joseph has been raking in the big league since being called up. He's got a 940 OPS. That is the highest on the team. 7 home runs so far since being called up and 105 at-bats. So Tommy Joseph showing that he belongs in this Royals order. It's going to be tricky to get him in the lineup next year, especially if I decide that Vince Falvey, the prospect we did that prospect profile on, if I decide that he's going to be our DH next year, it's definitely going to be tricky to get him in the lineup because right now he is tearing things up in AAA, but that is still a few months away, plus an off-season of transactions, and definitely things could change if certain signings happen in the off-season. This is all just speculation at this point, but we do have quite a few log jams at quite a few different positions. Hunter Dozier is a guy who started off the season not doing too much. He was hitting home runs, but he was striking out a ton, not really getting on base too much. He's had a much better go at it in the month of June. He's getting up there now. His 727 OPS, his average is getting up there. His OBP is above 300, which is where you want to see his OBP. He's never going to be a guy who gets on base a ton, but he is going to be a guy who has a decent average with a lot of home runs. And he does have 84 strikeouts. Definitely a slower pace than he was on, because he basically got 30-plus strikeouts in each month. This month cut it down slightly a bit, so hopefully he can continue on that trend while also continuing to hit home runs for us. Moving on to the pitcher side of things now, there is Adam Conley, who is by far our worst starting pitcher. I signed him in the offseason to a 1-year deal to be our 5th starter, to be a stopgap until the young guys can come up, if they are ready to come up in 2020. And Adam Conley's not been doing the best job. He's got a 4.90 ERA in 82 2/3 innings pitched. He could possibly be sent down in the month of July. We'll see how I feel about that, but as it stands right now, he is still our 5th starter. And the thing about him is he has multiple years left of service before he hits free agency, so at the end of the season, if he continues pitching like this, he's probably just going to be let go and he's going to sign with a different team, because I'm not going to bring him back to just be a logjam at a position where I already have way too much depth pitching. And then the bullpen has definitely been an issue this year with us. One of the reasons why is Justin Grimm, who was probably our best reliever aside from Kelvin Herrera in 2018, has not been that guy in 2019. He's got a 5.48 ERA, not good. 23 innings pitched, and he's averaging 6.26 walks per at a 9-inning rate. Not good for Justin Grimm. He is a veteran, though, so we're going to let him try to work through that. Brad Keller, on the other hand, also not doing well. 6.27 ERA. He's striking out a ton of people. That's 64 Ks and 47 and a 3rd innings pitched. That's a phenomenal strikeout rate. But once again, same problem with Grimm. 6.08 walks per 9 at that per 9-inning pace. Not good at all. He's being sent down to AAA, and to replace him is going to be Fernando Abad, who right now in AAA has a 1.11 ERA in 24 and a 3rd innings pitched. So he's getting called up to be the 2nd lefty along with Jose Torres in the bullpen. Brad Keller down to AAA, where he will be the closer, working on his stuff down there. Hopefully he's going to be able to put things together, because he is a guy that I'm looking to have be a key part of our bullpen. But if he can't end up being that, I mean, we'll just have to look to replace him with somebody else. And with that being said, that's pretty much going to wrap things up here for this edition of the June 2019 recap. As we head into the month of July, I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I'm saying goodbye.